Good evening and welcome. Thank you for joining us for this community reading of the Declaration of Independence. At this very moment in communities across the country, people are gathering to read this founding document and to reflect on the ideas that help shape our nation. 250 years ago, colonists gathered in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania for the very first public reading of the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration has been officially adopted 4 days prior, asserting the colony's right to self-governance. Since its adoption, this document has been a steady symbol of our country's commitment to freedom. As we gather today in this same spirit of civic engagement, joining us as the celebratory reading are the following community members: Cleveland Heights Mayor Jim Petrus, Cleveland Heights City Council President Tony Kuda, Cleveland Heights Municipal Court Judge Costello, Cleveland Heights High School student Jaden Martin, community members Rhonda Lovejoy, Deborah Cleef, Claire Rottenberg, and Reverend Jimmy Hicks Jr. Thank you. We thank you for coming and enjoying the Cleveland Heights reading the Declaration of Independence. And as we get ready to listen to our community members, remember, this is our country that we have fought so hard for, and it's an exciting time to remember our founding documents of what we have been doing and how we can build upon the documents of hope, the documents of our history, the documents of then, and the documents of now. But all of this is our Declaration of Independence of where our country has started. And we're just so glad that we have so many people here in attendance, part of the community, and other supporters to come hear us live read our Declaration of Independence. We should take this in the sense of reverence, of understanding where our forefathers were and where we can be and build upon the hope of not just of yesterday, but of today. These community leaders give me hope, they give me strength, and they give us hope that Cleveland Heights is a better community because we have people like this. So thank you so much. And we're going to start reading our Declaration of Independence in a moment.
Thank you, Representative Brent. We appreciate you joining us today. Cleveland Heights is fortunate to have such a strong fighter in the State House. My name is Jim Petrus, and I'm the mayor of Cleveland Heights, and I will begin with the first section in just a moment. The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object in vices a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government.
The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual and uncomfortable and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions of the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time, after such dissolutions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise. The state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and the convulsions within.
He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws of for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migration hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power.
He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and acknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses.
For abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies. For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our government. For suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us.
He has plundered our seas, ravished our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages and totally unworthy of the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections among us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions.
In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends.
We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is, and ought to be, totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
Thank you to our 7 community speakers who read the Declaration of Independence. As we reminisce on these 250 years, and even though some people in our crowd, most of the people in our crowd never have known what our founding fathers were thinking, but we definitely want to make sure we honor that with this. But we definitely don't want to overlook some of the things that we do here within our Declaration of Independence. The paradox of our founding fathers. At that time when this was written, Black Americans were considered as chattel slavery. We have to acknowledge that through our history of our country, we have evolved and we are constantly pushing for social justice, but we know systemic injustice is a real thing that we have to address and that we are dealing with every day within our country, and particularly within our community. The dehumanization of Indigenous people. We cannot forget the people who were originally here on this land and how they were talked about as merciless, indigenous savages. No more. We have to reflect a painful history of displacement that we must acknowledge, then rather gloss over. But there is hope. There is hope. The story of our country does not end with the flaws of what was happening when our forefathers wrote this. We have a blueprint that we have built upon, that all of us who are listening to my voice, who are listening in our community, who are here in this room, have benefited from for the past 250 years. And we are perfecting it and fighting to fulfill it every day. This is a legacy of hope that our country lies in a generation of Americans who refuse to let those contradictions stand. It lies in the civil rights leaders and the everyday citizens that the founders' promises demanded for. It lies in the hope of the power to adapt. Our history proves that we can grow, we can heal, and we can change. Each generation has pushed the needle closer to justice, making our nation a little more perfect than it was the day before. We also have a shared future that lies right here in this room, in our communities. We have the ultimate hope and power to define what America means, so that as we go into the next 300-year anniversary of our country, hopefully some of us will be around for it, we can look for the hope that we are leaving our country in a better place for the next anniversary. But let's look back at our history with absolute honesty, but let us look forward with fierce optimism. We are a resilient nation. We are a hopeful nation. Let us commit to working together so that the beautiful promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness truly belongs to every single America. God bless America. 250 years, you still look young.